It began not with fire or metal, but with a dream, the quiet thought of a man staring at the night sky. In the small Russian town of Kaluga, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky sat by his window, gazing at the stars that seemed impossibly distant. To most, they were unreachable. To him, they were destinations. He scribbled numbers and equations on scraps of paper, trying to prove what no one believed possible, that a rocket, powered by fuel and mathematics, could escape Earth's gravity. In 1903, he wrote the idea that would change everything. The Earth is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot remain in the cradle forever. Few read his work, but it didn't matter. The idea had been born. Decades later, across the ocean, Robert Goddard stood in a snow-covered field in Massachusetts, preparing to launch a strange metal cylinder. The newspapers had mocked him, calling him the Moon Man, laughing at his dream of interplanetary travel. But in 1926, when his small liquid-fueled rocket hissed and lifted a few dozen feet into the air, it was as if the universe whispered back, "Yes, it's possible." In Germany, Hermann Oberth read both Tsiolkovsky and Goddard. To him, they weren't dreamers, they were prophets. His book, The Rocket into Planetary Space, inspired a generation of engineers, including a young Wernher von Braun, who would one day transform dreams into roaring engines. But before exploration came destruction. The Second World War turned rockets into weapons. Von Braun's designs, meant for the stars, rained down on cities instead. Yet even amid the ruins, the dream endured. Scientists on both sides of the war looked at those rockets and thought, what if we pointed them upward instead? When peace returned, the world was divided by politics but united by curiosity. The Cold War had begun, and space became the next battlefield of ideas. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched a silver sphere called Sputnik into orbit. It was small, silent, and yet its beeping echoed across the planet, the heartbeat of a new age. People stepped outside their homes that night and looked up. Somewhere above them, humanity had placed its first object among the stars. The line between Earth and the cosmos had been crossed. Soon, the United States answered with their own rockets, and the race for the moon began. But beneath the rivalry was something greater, a sense that humanity had taken its first step into the infinite. Every satellite, every astronaut, every photograph of Earth from space traced its roots back to that first fragile idea, that we could go beyond our world. Tsiolkovsky never lived to see it. Goddard died before his work was recognized. Oberth retired as the world watched rockets soar higher than his imagination ever dared. But their idea had escaped the cradle. And as the world listened to the beeps of Sputnik, then the words "one small step for man," years later, the truth became clear. The space age wasn't launched by engines or nations. It was launched by a dream that began in the mind of one man looking up at the night sky, believing that humanity was destined for the stars.